We are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes, here to discuss Memphis's game with Auburn. That is going to be at State Farm Arena, 5 Eastern on Saturday. Blake, both these teams have a lot of athletes. We've seen both of them play. Should be a very interesting and really even matchup if you look at where the computers have these teams slated.
Yeah, I think that these are two pretty good teams, and like we talked about with Memphis, we saw them against SEC competition to open the season. They beat Vanderbilt. Common opponent between Memphis and Auburn is St. Louis. Memphis lost that road game against St. Louis in game 2. Of course, Auburn beat St. Louis at home by 5, so that's kind of a little comparison you can do. But Memphis also doesn't have some bad wins against teams like Nebraska, who's beaten Creighton. They beat Stanford. They beat Ole Miss. So that's kind of been their season at this point, kind of to me, driven by their defensive play. On the flip side, Auburn, same thing. I mean, they've kind of been the defense has been the driving force for them. We look at we've talked about the numbers, just how good they've been on the defensive side of the floor for the Tigers. And so I think this is kind of an interesting matchup and one that to me, seems like it will be one that's a little bit lower scoring, perhaps, and both teams trying to really make the other grind it out a little bit on the defensive side.
Yeah, defense is going to be a big emphasis. Auburn is number 1 in the country in block percentage. Auburn got just a couple of bigs. They lost the 2 they had last year. They get Traore and Broom, who are doing quite a job there. Auburn also, it's free throw defense, number 1 in the country, Blake. 55% is what people shoot against Auburn, which Memphis is an awful foul shooting team too, by the way. So Auburn will have a chance to improve its foul shooting defense, maybe even more against Memphis. Okay, that's a joke. Don't take
I'm
it
sure
too
Bruce Pearl's
seriously.
talking a lot about that.
But anyway, what's that?
I said I'm sure Bruce Pearl's really been talking about that a lot in the prep.
I'm sure he has. Get those hands up, guys. In all seriousness, Auburn number 7 in the country in effective field goal percentage defense, but Memphis pretty good too. Memphis will play a zone. Memphis will force a lot of turnovers. Memphis has got veteran guys. It's got Kenrick Davis. It's got Keontae Kennedy, Alex Lomax, DeAndre Williams, I think, is 26. It's got a lot of old guys that have played a lot of ball. And as we have talked about Auburn over the last couple of years, Auburn tends to get a little sloppy with the ball and shot selection, and that's going to be a place where the Tigers are going to have to be very careful. Well, I guess they're both Tigers. Auburn's Tigers will have to be careful against Memphis in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the case for Auburn against a lot of teams, just because we've talked about the offensive. I mean, the numbers are what they are. This isn't a great 3-point shooting team, like you said. It's not a great free throw shooting team, but yet they find ways to. They found a way to win every game they played to this point. The offensive output's been a little bit up and down. We've talked about that, but it's the same stuff. Like if some of the ugly stuff's going to rear its head with Auburn, what could it be? And I think you go back to shot selection and maybe, I don't know, getting a little happy, taking a lot of threes, in that regard. Maybe that's what you kind of look at, because it's still a team when you look at the 3-point numbers, they've had one game where they've hit 10. That was the Colgate game a week ago. All the others have been, single digits, and some of the numbers have not been great from that standpoint. So it's how do you kind of make your offense a little bit easier here? And I think when you look at it, there's a lot of different guys you can go to. I think Broom's going to be a big part of this game for Auburn to have success. I think he's got to, continue to be a consistent scorer for them. But you also go back to, I think, a guy like Alan Flanagan, and who we say, I think, has just got to give them some offensive production. And, he's done so, I think, for the most part. Some hadn't had any huge games yet, but I think he still has that potential to break out and be able to do it. But yeah, I mean, the guard groups are going to be what you watch for here, because you kind of look at this and see, with Kendrick Davis on the other side, talk about Lomax and Kennedy, those kind of guys are all there. So I think it's just, the battle of the guards is going to be a lot of fun in this one, I think.
I want to bring up something else with Auburn, where I think Auburn can give Memphis a little bit of a problem. But before that, A shout out to our sponsor, Stakes. Predict sports better than the crowd for a chance to win NFTs. With Stakes, players can submit their sports predictions against friends, other fans, and influencers forever. Don't let your sports genius go overlooked. Join Stakes and have the best predictions captured in the moment. Head to playwithstakes.com/14. Use our invite code Southeastern14 for a double welcome bonus. Okay, I spoke about Auburn's shot blocking and Johnny Broome, one of the better ones in the country. Traore really has not established himself as a shot blocker yet, but we talked about this last year. When Auburn goes to its bench, you got a couple of really underrated bigs in Dylan Cardwell being one of those guys, Jalen Williams being another, guys that have played a lot of ball. If foul attrition gets to be an issue in this game, I really like Auburn's front court depth and its ability to kind of still enforce inside, even if its bigs do wind up in foul trouble or out of the game for whatever reason.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be important. I mean, for those guys with Broome and Cardwell and Williams and yeah, I mean, because look, I feel like we got a lot of doubles in this one. There's a Williams, of course,
Yeah.
on the other side for Memphis with DeAndre Williams, but that's going to be a big part of this. And I think again, we kind of know that with how these teams want to play, getting up and down the floor a little bit, the guards will kind of drive, I think, the style here. But really, I mean, the big guys, like I said, Broome for Auburn, Jalen Williams, like I said, Cardwell, those kind of guys. Yeah, having the depth there going up against DeAndre Williams on the other side is very important. And I think this is an Auburn team we talked about. Just from a depth standpoint, I think it's kind of a little underrated in terms of what they can do, just in terms of how they can match up with other teams. And I think this is one where you could maybe kind of see that against Memphis is, Traore, those guys, like all these different guys who are playing a lot of minutes, right? And I think you kind of look at it and feel like, okay, we've got some options here. We know that we can turn to some of these guys in different key points throughout a game, and we can kind of rotate some of these guys in and out. So I think it's going to be very important, to get something out of kind of all these bigs for Auburn. And given what we've seen from these guys, we know the potential's there with all of them. It's just a matter of kind of seeing how that rotation plays out here. And again, I think a lot of Auburn's points are going to have to come inside the 3-point line. And so that's where getting some easy buckets too. You talked about the rebounding numbers, right? We've always said Bruce Pearl's best teams have seemingly been great shot blocking teams and teams that can get a lot of offensive rebounds, it feels like. And it's been a good team, in terms of getting a lot of those offensive boards and having some second chance opportunities. I think that'll be important too against a Memphis team that, as we say, will defend and getting some of those easy looks, maybe through the big men, on offensive rebounding opportunities will be big.
Yeah, Auburn has got 10 guys that average at least 14 minutes, although Memphis pretty deep too. It's got 9 in that regard. So, all right, how do you see this playing out? It's a 1 to 3 point game in Auburn's favor, according to what computers you look at. We don't have a line on this as we do it Friday morning. How do you see this playing out?
Give me the Tigers, Chris. There you go. Yeah.
That's
I'm
why people
I'm going with the Tigers. Look, I said it earlier. I think this is a low scoring game. I just feel like, unless it gets into a foul shooting contest, which may still be a low scoring game, because I know Auburn's not made a lot of free throws, but um, I still think that Auburn's the better team here in terms of
I do
just,
too.
this is a team that has found a way to kind of will itself. I mean, look at the Northwestern game, right? Look at the St. Louis game. Even go back to like the South Florida game. Didn't play their best, but their defense still kind of pushed everything to give them a chance to win. I think that's the case here, where I think it's still going to be about their defense and still going to give them a chance, to make this kind of a grinded out type game, because both teams are capable offensively in terms of their potential. They've got some guys who can break out and have big games. But I just think this is probably a game that, even with two teams that will get up and down the floor a little bit at times, I just think it's more about the defense here and really challenging the other side. But I give Auburn the slight edge in this one. But this is kind of your toss up game to me, just because I think these are two pretty good teams, and I just think Auburn not as experienced. Maybe this is an experienced Memphis team with Davis and those kind of guys, but I don't know. I'll give Auburn a slight edge here.
Well, and Auburn's got plenty of experience too, between Green and Flanagan and Jasper
Right.
and those guys too. They're just not quite as old as Memphis. So anyway, this will be a fun one if you'd like to put a little money on it. Betting $11 to win 10 stinks, which is why we have partnered with BROTHROW, which lets you bet on all 50 states. It's not the house, so bettors have a fair chance at winning. It's the only sports platform that doesn't take a cut of every bet. No deposit money needed, no minimum bets. Bettors pay each other directly. It's a hassle-free process that lets you get in the action in seconds. Go to BROTHROW, BROTHROW.com/SE14. Join our community, have some fun, help out the folks who help us. Okay, we are Chris Lee and Blake Lovell of Southeastern 14, presented by Stakes. More previews of SEC basketball games coming this weekend. Best way to get those, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.